Hello. Hey. Hi. Don't think anybody's in, and I haven't scheduled this, so I'm always surprised if anybody catches a live. And this is only my third, so there's not a lot of stats behind it. Anyways, I hope the sound is good. I hope y'all can hear me. A couple months ago, actually, I had an idea for a video that I wanted to do. And that video was going to be, like, I already had thought of a title. It's going to be like the 3 little words that are hard to say. And it wasn't going to be anything about I love you. Personally, I don't think I love you is hard to say. Oh, hello, Cece. Oh, thank you for letting me know. Hi, Queen Tsuki Meow. That's a cute name. All right. Well, I'm glad there's some people here and that I know that y'all can hear me. That's good to know. So yeah, I was thinking, 3 little words that are hard to say. And what I was thinking was, I was wrong. That's 3 little words that are hard to say. I'm sorry. And I need help. Or please help me. And today I just want to focus on I need help or please help me. And I want to talk a little bit about it. And obviously, because I grew up in Scientology and the Sea Org, there's going to be a bit of a Scientology spin on it. But I also think it's something, I don't think you need to be an ex-Scientologist to struggle with asking for help. So I want to look at it from a few different perspectives as well. And the reason why I decided that, okay, it is time to do this video and I'm going to focus just on asking for help is because something happened this week, and I'll show you. These are crutches. I'm on crutches. So on Tuesday, oh, hello, Samuel. On Tuesday, I got an injury on my leg. There's a tendon that attaches the calf muscle to other parts of the body, I guess, has partially snapped off. Not fully snapped off, which is good because that would require surgery, but partially snapped off. And it's very painful, and I couldn't walk. I was just making my bed, guys. I'm old now, so this is, I guess, stuff that happens. I was making my bed, and there was like a pop, and it felt like a rubber band snapped in my calf muscle, and it hurt really bad. And I was just about to go to work. So luckily, I can do most of my job as long as I have a computer and an internet connection. So I just started up my computer and I sent a little text and I said, hey, I'm working from home today because I think I pulled a muscle, and, and I started working. Hello, oh, now what? Hi. And by the time 11 o'clock came around, the pain had not receded at all, and I still could barely walk, and I was starting to get stressed out. And I had texted my boyfriend, and he was like, you should probably go see a doctor. And I was like, oh, I don't think so. And after he insisted a bit, I did call a number here in Sweden. It's 1177 is what it's called. And it's basically, you can just speak to a nurse and get advice if you should go to the doctor or not. And I spoke with her, and she was like, yeah, you should actually go to the emergency room. Or we have in Sweden something it's like an emergency room, but it's not for like life and death situations. It's like emergency room light. So I told my boss, hey, I've been advised to go to the emergency room, so I'm going to do that. And I'll let you know how it's going. And I logged off, and I jumped one-legged through the apartment into the shower because I was like, I need to take a shower before I go out. And I took a shower and I jumped one-legged to the other end of my apartment to get dressed. And that's when I realized there's no way I'm making it to the emergency room on my own. I don't have a car and I don't drive, so I would have to take the bus and then the subway. And the closest bus to me right now, because the one that usually stops nearby, it's not stopping there over the summer, is a 10-minute walk. 80% of that walk is uphill. And I was jumping around on one leg and I was already exhausted. And I needed to ask for help. And this happened. I started crying. The pain was really bad. I didn't care so much about the pain. I didn't care so much about like feeling like, okay, great, I have to go to the hospital. It felt like a nuisance. But the fact that I had to ask for help was the hardest part of that day. And I couldn't even do it right out. So I actually sent a text to my boyfriend's father, who lives quite nearby, and he has a car. And I was like, oh, hey, are you busy like for the next hour or so? And he called me right up because he doesn't like text. He likes to call. So he called me right up and he said, no, I'm just out walking the dog, my dog actually, because they dog sit. They were dog sitting that day because I was supposed to be at work. And he's like, no, I'm just out walking the dog, what's up? And then I could barely speak. And I said, I need a ride to the emergency room. And he came and got me. And that was very nice of him. Yeah, anyways, I spent a couple hours in the emergency room and they told me it's a tendon that's kind of partially snapped off, and they gave me crutches. And my partner's dad asked me if I wanted to ride home, and I said, no, I don't need help. I have crutches and I can get home on my own. And so, I made my way to the bus stop and I got home on my own. But that whole incident made me want to discuss this topic. I had already thought of it before, as I mentioned, but I felt like, yeah, it's time to talk about it. It's time to talk about asking for help. And why is that hard? Hello, James Steele. Thank you for joining. Diane Lynn. Hello. And Maya, aka Alice in Art Supply Hoarderland. Hey. All right, so I've made a few notes about why is it hard to ask for help. And the categories I have my notes in are evolutionarily, I think that's the correct way to say it, culturally, past experiences, and of course, Scientology. Just going to pop this up here. It can be very hard to ask for help when you've been told for the majority of life that asking for help is wrong. Exactly. I'm happy you did ask for help. Well, I am glad I asked for help too, even though it was hard. Yeah, okay. And I think everybody needs to ask for help. There's no one that makes it on their own, completely on their own throughout an entire life. And I think a lot of people do have trouble asking for help. Let's see this comment from James Steele. Pride, shame, fear. Yeah, I think these things do play a role in asking for help. Absolutely. All right. So let's dive into the notes I've made. Evolutionarily, humans are a flock animal, or creatures, or beings. We made it through evolution. We survived evolving and becoming the pretty much the dominant race on this earth by working together, by being in a group, by being part of a team. And part of being in a group or being in a team is wanting to fit in. And that can be like in looks or in how you act, but also wanting to fit in skills. Like if your tribe are fishers, you probably want to be good at fishing. Or if your tribe are huntsmen, like hunter-gatherers, you want to be good at either hunting or gathering. Like you want to fit in skill-wise as well. Being kicked out of your group, out of your tribe for a long time in history was pretty much equal to death, because you couldn't survive on your own. You needed others to help you survive. So part of wanting to fit in is also being able to pull your own weight and not being a burden for others and not being seen as weak. And I think like when times were harsher, if you had somebody who was a burden or was weak or couldn't pull their weight, and maybe you were hunter-gatherers and you had to move for the winter season or something, they left people behind, or worse, or put people out of their misery, I guess. So evolutionarily, we want to fit in and we want to be able to contribute to the team, to the tribe, and we want to not be a burden, which can make it hard to ask for help. All right, let's pop this up. Nice to see more people popping in. Let's see. Hello, 91 Millie. Cults and narcissistic relationships tend to build the distrust in others and a feeling of not being worthy of help. Yeah. As if it would be something ugly. I'm glad you're facing this head on. Thank you. Yeah, and I'm going to get to that as well. Actually, I need to make a note because not worthy of help. I didn't have that, and I'm going to write it up. But yeah, so thank you for that comment. Okay, so evolutionarily, it's hard to ask for help because we don't want to be weak, and we want to fit in, and we want to contribute, and we don't want to be a burden to the people that we depend on to survive and love, right? Okay. Culturally, now, I spent all of my growing up years in the Sea Org, so I have kind of a weird cultural background on that. And I met, mainstream culture for the first time when I was 20. But there are a few things I think that fit in here and that make it hard to ask for help. And the first one I want to talk about is toxic masculinity. Now, I am not a man, so I don't know how that feels. But I do see that men struggle with toxic masculinity. They struggle with being allowed to show emotions, especially something that's like sadness or grief. And they struggle with asking for help because they don't want to be seen as weak. And as a non-man, but observer of men, I have seen this a lot. And I think that also contributes to not being able to ask for help. There's like a pride thing there. You don't want to be weak. You want to be able to do it yourself. There's a whole men take care of the women, protect the women undertones to a lot of cultures that I think make it especially hard for men to admit when they need help and to ask for help or to accept help when it's freely offered. Yeah. So that's one thing. And to flip the coin, we got the girl boss. Girl boss, I'm not trendy, but I've heard this, girl boss. Independent women. I think for women, we've struggled for so long to have the same rights as men. I didn't feel this growing up in the Sea Org, because while the Sea Org is extremely heteronormative, they don't actually care what gender you are when they're looking at like what you can do. You can do the same thing as anybody else, no matter your size, age, or gender. But in the mainstream culture, there is this struggle for women to prove themselves independent. And, you know, you can do it on your own, or you don't need a man, which, I mean, sometimes you need help. It doesn't have to be from a man. It can be from another woman as well. But yeah, there's this whole like, you know, thing of proving that I can do this on my own. That, yeah. I mean, so I've been on crutches since Tuesday, and my boyfriend did help me out on Tuesday with some shopping, grocery shopping, and so on. And on Thursday as well, he went to the shops for me. And then on Friday, he texted me and said, "Do you need anything from the shops?" And I said, "No, I'm a strong, independent woman. I can do it myself." So yeah, I think there's some culture in not asking for help and in trying to prove how capable one is. James Steele says, I think it depends on what situation as a man, yeah, that you're in and what situation you're in. And I agree. And I think that's for women as well. And as not being a man, I can't really speak to the male experience on this. I would just say it's a personal observation. Yeah. Fuzzy pink handcuffs. I really like that handle. Hello. Okay, so we've spoken about evolutionarily and culturally, and now I'm going to talk a little bit about past experiences. Of course, I think everybody has had experiences where they have asked for help, and that's kind of hard. You know, that's showing yourself vulnerable, and it's, you know, sorry, I just saw this comment. Except I hope be spoiled. Thank you so much for thinking I deserve to be spoiled. Yeah. I Ashley said I've already asked for help twice this week, and you know that's 2 more times than my quota for the quarterly. But yeah, I do also tend to use humor in situations where I'm uncomfortable. All right, so past experiences. I'm sure everybody's had experiences where they have asked for help and they have reached out and they have shown themselves vulnerable, and to not have been given help, or sometimes even worse, maybe been made to feel less than or shamed, or as 91 or someone in the chat earlier, sorry, I forget who said it earlier, feeling not worthy of help. I have an example of this, and I'm just gonna throw out a little trigger warning for self-harm here. So just, you know, turn off the volume for 30 seconds or so. When I wanted to leave the Sea Org, and I had failed to do so by saying it, because they always talk me into staying, I slit my wrist. And I got in trouble, of course. But no one asked me, how can we help you? Not even my mother. When she found out, she said, how could you do such a thing? And how could you do this to me? But she didn't once ask if she could help me or if there was something I needed help with. So for me, that's a past experience of when I didn't ask for help, but it was definitely a cry for help, which this video is not, by the way, just in case. And it was not met. The help I needed was not offered. And in fact, I was punished for it. So there's that. So yeah, I think, past relationships or past situations where asking for help has, instead of getting help, has made it worse. I think that's also a reason why a lot of people struggle with help or struggle with asking for help or accepting help as well. Okay. I'm going to get to some comments and then we're going to get into Scientology. Because I'm going to put a Scientology spin on it as well. All right, let's see. 91 Millie says, asking for help doesn't always mean you're not capable of doing it yourself. That's true. That is true. Some people love to help out and feel needed and loved by others. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, it is true. And I like it when people ask me for help. Which is funny when I feel like asking for help is me being a nuisance. But yeah, I mean, we can know something logically, but not feel it in our hearts. Okay. Asking for help has been perceived for so long as a sign of weakness, yeah. These days, it's generally not as strict in society, but it's still difficult. Yeah, it is still difficult. And I know it's, it's loosening up. And I think we have maybe some younger generations to thank for that. Yeah. It is getting easier to ask for help. I think in society as a whole, and I'm eventually going to learn how to do it easily as well. My actual husband and never in is spoiling me, and I love it. My ex, still Scientologist, was and is an egoist. Yeah, I think. I think that's actually something that Scientology tends to do. It brings out any egoism that you have naturally, and just kind of, turns up the notch on it, makes it bigger. Thank you, 91 Millie, for your comments as well. And Cece. My mother does need help. She's in a cult. She just doesn't know she needs help. Okay. There's no limit on asking for help. We all deserve to be spoiled and cared about. I have survived 4 attempts and I'm glad. I am glad you survived and I am glad you're here. Thank you so much. Yeah, there is no limit. That's true. And also, logically, I can know that, but I don't feel it in my heart yet. And Samuel has a comment here as well. So sorry about your mother's reaction. Actually, I had a very similar one from my mother when she found out about me too. She never asked me what was making me so unhappy and wanted it. Yeah. And I'm sorry you had to go through that as well. I think, unfortunately, a lot of ex-Scientologists or ex-Sea Org, especially the second generations or younger kids that have made attempts, have been met with a similar reaction, which is pretty bad. Okay. You don't have to do everything yourself just because you could. You need to get to be human too. Now, see, in Scientology, being human, humans are just bodies, right? You're a thing. So, yeah. There's a song by Rag and Bone Man. I think it's called Just Human or I'm Just Human. I don't remember. And I heard that song shortly after I had woken up. And I remember thinking the first time I heard it that if I was still in Scientology, I would feel like I shouldn't be allowed to like this song. But yeah, I love it because it's true. We're only human and we do need help, and we should be allowed to ask for it. Okay, there are a whole bunch of comments here. I see everybody is giving love to Samuel as well, which is good because I love him too. And Annette says Scientology makes your ego big in a bad way. I think that's true. I have seen that tendency. I'm not sure I could analyze exactly why that is. I think I know. I think I have an idea of why that is. But it's something to definitely think about and discuss further on. But I think I've seen that tendency. Scientologist mothers don't seem to deserve the monaka of mother. I guess like title, I want to say monocle, but I don't think, okay. But I'm guessing title. I am very conflicted on the subject of Scientology mothers or Scientology parents. My mother in particular, because that's the one I have had experience with. But that's probably a video for another day. But in this case, she definitely should have asked if I needed help or what she could do to help me. And she didn't. And she should have. Yeah. I too like helping others. Yeah. And I feel like I know they can trust me when they ask. I'm going to cry again. And I'm actively saying to myself, really, I'm making them feel good if I ask for help. I'm trying to trick myself. Yeah. I maybe need to try and trick myself like that as well. I do like it when people ask me for help. I do have issues though with saying no when I can't, and I will bend over backwards to help anybody in any way I can, even if it's not good for me. But I am also learning to say when I can't help. But I do generally like when people ask me for help. And that's true. Good taste in music. Thank you very much, because I have often been bullied for my taste in music. So thank you for that. Okay, so there are some more comments, and I'm going to get back to them. But first, I want to touch on Scientology, like the Scientology reasons why it's hard to ask for help. And I'm sure there are more, but these are just the ones I remembered off the top of my head. The first thing is Scientologists are always striving to be capable, and OTs, right? So operating thetan, which means you can control anything in your life. You are at cause over time, matter, energy, space, and time. Oh, sorry. Matter, energy, space, and time. At cause means you're the one controlling it and causing things to happen or to not happen. And even if you are not, even if you're not OT on the bridge, that's something to aspire to as a Scientologist. And if you're in the Sea Org, you're supposed to automatically be an operating thetan, because the definition of a Sea Org member is an operating thetan. So admitting you can't do something and asking for help would be like admitting that you're a victim of your case. Your case being, all the stuff that auditing is supposed to take away, being all your misemotion, which is like any emotions that are bad, or all your bad memories and stuff like that. That's your case. And when you get auditing, you're supposed to be taking away the case. So admitting to a vulnerability, admitting to not being able to deal with something or handle something on your own, and asking for help would be admitting that you're a victim of your case, because you're not being an OT, not operating at cause. Yeah, which is also like leading from that to the next thing is incompetence. So Scientology says we make the able more able, we make the competent more competent, I guess, as well. And in keeping Scientology working, the policy, it has a line that's like, we would rather have you dead than incompetent. So admitting incompetence, if we're going to be very literal, it would be better to be dead, which is just insane. Yeah. So that's a little bit of Scientology, why it's hard to ask for help. The next thing I want to talk about is, this would be in regards to if you're working for Scientology in the Sea Org or on staff, but maybe I don't know how it would be for public. But in a Scientology organization, Sea Org or staff, and you have a post, you have a job, and you're supposed to be doing that job. And if you can't handle that job and you need to ask for help from a superior, then that's called, and your superior has to do that for you, then that's called bypass, which is basically your superior going past you straight to your job and doing the job instead of you. And that is an automatic condition of danger that you then have to do the condition formulas for, and so on. And I would say at best, because if when I was in the Sea Org, if I had asked any of my seniors for help with something that was my post, my job, my responsibility, and I only got assigned danger, I would have been very lucky. I could have been assigned a lot lower condition. I could have been sent to work in the galley, doing dishes or doing heavy labor. Could be busted off post, demoted. Could be have your pay taken away or your meal times. Yeah, so you can't ask a senior for help when you're working in a Scientology organization. And you can't really ask someone below you for help. And the Scientology organization is very hierarchical, because then you would be putting them in that situation of them being in danger, right? So that's, yeah, it's toxic, I guess. I don't know how to go on from there. Okay. And the last thing I want to talk about, and this would apply to any Scientologist, whether you're on staff or in the CEO or not, and that is the concept of exchange in Scientology. In Scientology, there's this belief that you always have to have a exchange that has to be level, and being unlevel. So, like, let's say I ask for help and I get help, but I don't give anything back, then the scales will tip, and I would be out exchange. And in Scientology, they believe that out exchange is pretty much the first step to criminality. Like, all criminals started with just being out exchange in some way of their life. So you can't just ask for help and receive help. You have to offer help in return, or you have to offer something else in return. You can't just ask a favor. You would have to be able to pay for that favor or offer a different favor. And preferably it would have to be something slightly above in value for whatever help it is you're getting, so that you can have, because they rank like the exchange conditions, and you want to do exchange condition 4, I think it was called. And you want to always like one up a little bit the exchange for whatever it is you're doing for each other, which means if you're in a point where you need help, you're not always able to offer something else in return, which would mean that if you got help and you weren't able to do something for the other person, you would be out exchange and you are taking your first step on the slippery slope to criminality. So I think this is kind of like just an added thing to already there are reasons why it's hard to ask for help. And Scientology just takes that and, turns up the notch quite a few steps. So yeah, that's this is my theory on why I have trouble asking for help and why other ex-Scientologists might have trouble asking for help. And also previously there were theories on why people in general have trouble asking for help. And now I'm going to try and catch up on the comments. So let's see. Oh, I have to scroll up quite a bit. All right. Let's see. Sue Herman says, as a never end, my outlook would be different. I see it as I help you when you need it, and you are there for me when I'm in need. Yeah, I agree. And actually had this interaction with a friend. He was a colleague at my previous job, a couple of jobs ago, actually. And I was at the time trying to study as well. While I was working, I was also trying to study because I really wanted to go to university and I had to do some studies before I could do that. And because I was working then part-time and studying quite a bit, I had very little money. And this colleague, he had just finished his education and gotten a diploma as, I think it would be called a paralegal in US English. Anyways, something with the law, right? He's not a lawyer, but something with the law. And he had just finished his studies, and we both worked at the same job, but he was only working part-time. And he had just gotten his diploma, and now he was like, had just gotten a new job. And we went out for meet up and have burgers and a beer or something. And I told him I was only gonna have fries and water because that was what I could have afforded. And he said, no, I'm getting you the meal you want. And I was like, no, I don't want to accept money from you. And he said, no, this is the student tax. And I was like, what? And he said, when he was a student and he had friends that were no longer students and they had good cushy jobs, they paid for him. And now he has a good cushy job and he's paying for somebody else who is a student. And he called it the student tax. And that kind of stuck with me a little bit. It's kind of like the pay it forward, if you ever saw that movie. Or is that even an expression anymore? I don't know. But I kind of like that as well. Let's see. Cults have to take away the compassion of others. This is true. So they can have loyal followers. I agree. Yep. If they stop to think with their hearts, they could wake up and leave. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth in that. Which is also insane because most cults are have such altruistic ideals. Like in Scientology, they think they're saving the world, right? They think they're saving mankind, salvaging the spiritual freedom of mankind. And that's a very altruistic goal if it was real, but it's not. And 90%, 99% probably of the people in Scientology don't know it's not real. So in a way, I would think cults do kill your compassion, but you don't realize it because you think you're doing something good. SP Chef, if you help one person, that's a gift. Don't think you're not doing an amazing thing. That's sweet. This is probably a conversation that I just accidentally jumped into. But I think Samuel's doing a great job on YouTube. And I think people are being helped by him. Let's see. Some people ask for help when they don't need it. That ruins it for others, maybe. I feel like that could be a a longer conversation. And I do feel like, well, like with the story with the boy who cried wolf, I do feel like that can happen sometimes, but I don't think it's as common as people would want you to believe. I don't know. Let's see. This definitely. Cults don't always want you to know that people outside of the cult can be kind, so they treat outsiders as a monster under the bed. This is 100% true. And usually it's a fear tactic that cults use. They make you afraid of the outside world and the people on the outside of your group, so that your safety is tied up with the in-group or the cult. And this is a common thing used in many cults. And I would say that a lot of cults that have missionary requirements, where you have to go and knock on somebody's door or hand out pamphlets and so on, and do like missionary work, and that's a requirement for usually for the men, in a couple different groups, has actually shown that what the cults or what the groups usually gain from that is not new followers. I mean, a couple here and there maybe, but what they usually gain from that is strengthening the feeling of safety within the in-group for their members. So they send missionaries out and they knock on doors, and they get doors slammed in their faces, and they get people spitting on them, and they get people yelling at them and saying like, oh, you're brainwashed or whatever. And that proves to the members that the outside world is scary and the inside group, the in-group, is safe, which is pretty nefarious. Yeah. Okay, I see. Wow, it's so messed up. I think that popped up. I think I saw that pop up when I was talking about exchange, and that is messed up. It is messed up. Let's see. And here's why Scientology fails. Probably also when I was talking about exchange. Maybe. But whatever it was in reference to, I'm sure it's correct, because Scientology fails people all the time. Let's see. Being in exchange, you must give at least the equivalent back, but really it's expected that you give more than what you received. Yes, exactly. This is why, for example, Scientologists will not help the homeless. Yeah. They won't help the homeless or anybody else in need unless that person can offer something in exchange. Because if you were to help someone who is homeless or who couldn't give anything back, you would be pushing them down the road to criminality. And that's mean. All it makes sense. But credit card loans are fine. Yes, they are, because that's the cash money for the cults. All right, we're going on. Okay, now I see why you find it hard to ask for help. It's all extremes. It is extremes, yeah. Yeah. And I'm working on it. And it's something that I have spoken about with my therapist. Yeah. Okay. Crazy gaslighting. Help is something that's freely given with no expectation of anything in return. And okay, again, logically, I get that. I know it logically. I just don't know it in my heart yet. But I'm hoping to get there. All right. This is an interesting quote. CC. It seems it got much worse in the early 90s. I was at AOLA, which is the Advanced Organization in Los Angeles, 1977 to 1996, and the nasty had just begun. Okay. That's interesting, CC. Were you in the Sea Org or were you public? That would be fun to know. But yeah, I have heard, okay, so 1996, I was pretty fresh off the EPF and in the Sea Org at that time. And before that, I only had the cadet org as an experience. So I don't know, but I have heard that things were a little bit fast and loosey-goosey back in the day. And I do think it got worse. And I'm going to say something controversial here. I don't think it's only Miscavige's fault. He is, of course, a really bad guy in Scientology. But I think this is actually a trend you can see in cults in general. That it starts off one way and it gets worse and worse and worse and worse until sometimes the worst happens. Yeah. And I would say the few cults that do it the other way around are usually the ones that have managed, like they have to, because they've managed to expand so much and they have so many members, and that they've become almost mainstream, and then they couldn't be that extreme within the group because you can't control that large number of members. So there are groups that I consider cults that are actually loosening the rules a little bit, but that's because they have such large numbers that you can't really do the same amount of control on them. And Scientology is shrinking, which is making them crazy and desperate, which is making it more extreme. I think it feeds itself like a really bad cycle. And I will say, I do think Miscavige has a major part in this, but I think pretty much anyone who had taken over would have probably seen a similar trend, because that is a trend in cults. Okay, let's see. Paying it forward. Yeah, I really like this concept a lot, actually. So this is in response to you can take out credit card loans, but then you have the idea of the greater good, because taking out loans will help you be able to help Scientology. Yeah. So the greater good, Scientology has this thing called the 8 dynamics, which is basically just 8 sections of life. The first one being yourself, the second one being your family, and so on and so forth. When you're going to make a decision in Scientology, you're supposed to consider what decision would be the greatest good for the greatest number of dynamics. However, in Scientology as a group, it would be the 3rd dynamic, and mankind is the 4th dynamic, and all the attention is on the 3rd dynamic and the 4th dynamic. They don't care about your 1st or 2nd dynamic. They don't care about the 5th dynamic, 7th or 8th. They care about the 3rd dynamic, and the 3rd dynamic is supposed to be good for the 4th dynamic. And that's how you make your decisions. So anything that helps Scientology is good for all your dynamics in their mind. And taking out a credit card loan would help Scientology. Okay, let's see. All right, here's a comment. With no intention. As a step closer to criminality, I would ask, being closer to criminal mean being closer to being a true Scientologist? Oh, it'll be very nice. And there's a second comment here, so let me see if that one together can help me interpret what you're saying. No intention to yeah. Yeah, I think that the money scheme that Scientology runs is the most out exchange you could ever be, I think. And yeah, they never have an intention of paying anything back or so on. So my grandmother, when she got health conditions that she wasn't allowed to go to flag anymore, and she was on OT level 7, which you can only do at flag, she had a whole bunch of money on accounts, but she couldn't ask for that back because that's a suppressive act. So she spent it buying basics packages, which was all the books when they got released. And so I got a basics package from her, and my brother got one. And I think she bought one for a local library, and she bought one for herself. And I think she bought one for one of her sons as well. So yeah, she just used up all the money that was left that she couldn't use for her own spiritual advancement to buy Scientology books, because there was no way she could have asked for that back without being in serious trouble. Yeah. Which is seriously out of exchange and also criminal. Isolation keeps you trapped and gaslit. That's why abusive systems don't like outside connections. Yeah, that's true. That is true. And hello. Hi, Miriam. So nice to see you, as always. Okay, I think there are more comments than I'll be able to catch up on. Because I've been going for 15 minutes and I thought this was going to take 20. But I'm going to read through them quickly and see if there's anything really special that I want to pop up. Oh, this. RSD makes it hard to ask for help too, and it's common for people with odd DHD. Okay, so RSD is rejection sensitivity dysfunction or disorder or dysmorphia. I'm not sure which one. And it's very common in people with autism or ADHD. And I would say yes. I have a massive fear of rejection in every aspect of my life in a way that's not normal. And it might be because of my insane attachment dysfunction, because I grew up pretty much without a parent. And it might also be RSD. And RSD, that it's a very interesting topic. And I think if you haven't heard of it before, I would definitely say check it out. The first time I heard of it, I was like, oh my God, mind blown. All right, here's Cece. Let's see. I was mostly on registrar pursued than FBO for a few. Oh, wow. I think registrar would have been super traumatic. No matter what trouble I was in the Sea Org, I was like, at least I'm not a registrar. And purser, and then FBO. FBO is flag banking officer, which is kind of like middle management, but I don't remember exactly what they do. Hello, Eric. Thank you. Oh, it was your birthday, Eric? Let's see. It was your birthday yesterday. I wish you such a happy birthday. I hope you had a great day. Oh, I said I was going to read through them all and just pop up the specific ones, but now I'm just popping them all up. Everything you express is so raw and sore and present. Our frankness and honesty is painfully beautiful. I hope you find peace tonight. Thank you so much, James. That's very sweet of you. I will say I do generally feel at peace for the most part. But when I do start talking about things and the emotions get stirred up, then I try to not clamp down on them anymore. I like make a conscious decision to not have my TRs in and to let them out. Yeah. And also, I'm going to steal the crybaby of SPTV title from Aaron. All right. Okay. I do want to wrap up because I want to go watch some TV with my daughter. So I'm just going to read through these really quick. It's been so wonderful to see how good we are at fundraising when we need to do. I'm guessing this is about helping second gens and other ex-Scientologists that have needed help, and also other members of the community with like legal fees and stuff. And I do think it's been so beautiful to see the community coming together to help others when they need help, and to just do it and not expect anything back. And that's very beautiful. Okay. Oh. You still put yourself out there, making you very brave. Thank you so much. Yeah. Let those tears out. Exactly. Yeah. No more keeping them bottled up. Just gonna let it all out. And I do feel better, like in the moment. It's very uncomfortable, but I ruminate about it less when I just let it out in the moment. So that's also good. Let's see what's going on. Aaron will blame himself. It's always his fault. Yeah, well, that's also. I think it's beautiful when Aaron cries, because I know he hasn't done a lot of therapy, but he's getting in touch with his true inner emotions, and I think that's beautiful to see. Yeah. And thanks, Bianca, for sharing a piece of your story with us. We find healing, even if it's just a little bit. Thank you so much, Irish Mart. I do find healing. I do. And this video was all about asking for help. But I do want to point out, this is not a cry for help. I'm not going to say I promise to ask for help when I need it. But I am working on it. I am working on it. And I do speak about it with my therapist, which is good. And I will say I have found a lot of peace since leaving. Well, in the last, I would say, since I started speaking out, I have felt a lot better. It was like something lifted, which was really nice. And I have actually felt a lot better as well since the protest in Copenhagen with Scientology up north, Miriam, and L1 Hub Cult, Balaj, and SP Chef Samuel, and then the two twins as well. So yeah, I do think I'm getting healing. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, so I'm going to end the stream here. I'm so sorry. Pepperoni Nips, which is a really funny handle. Hi, first timer. Welcome. Unfortunately, I'm just going to close down. But yeah, I hope you'll come back some other time and see something else that I do. I'm going to try to get in a schedule, guys. But I don't keep to a schedule very well, so it hasn't gone very well. Okay, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for holding space. If you need help, please try to ask for it. Take care of your mental health, and don't be culty, and I will see you all later. Bye.